She was standing 10 feet away from me, whispering into her phone, at my son's engagement dinner, in my house, and the words coming out of her mouth, they changed everything.
My name is Frank. I'm 67 years old. I walk with a slight limp from a construction accident I had back in 1998. My hair went white early. I wear reading glasses. And apparently, to some people, that means I'm just a harmless old man who doesn't notice things. That was the first mistake Tiffany ever made about me. The second one was much worse. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story didn't start at that dinner. It started 40 years ago, in a field nobody wanted. When I was 27, I bought 140 acres of land in rural Virginia. My wife, Carol, God rest her soul, thought I was crazy. We had almost nothing back then. I scraped together every dollar I had, took a small loan from her father, and bought that land from an old farmer who just wanted to retire quietly. Nobody wanted it. It was mostly wooded. No road access at the time. No utilities. Just trees, hills, and a creek that flooded every spring. People laughed. My own brother called it the dumbest thing I'd ever done. But I had a feeling. I held on to that land for 4 decades. Paid the taxes every single year without fail. Never sold an acre. Never mortgaged it. Never told a soul exactly how much of it I owned. Carol passed 7 years ago. Pancreatic cancer? Gone in 4 months from diagnosis. After she died, I moved in with my son Daniel. Daniel is 34. He's a good man. Honest, hardworking, loyal, everything his mother and I tried to raise him to be. He works in logistics. Not rich, but stable. He owns his house, pays his bills, and calls me every Sunday without fail. A year ago, he met Tiffany. She was beautiful. Polished. She knew exactly what to say and when to say it. She laughed at the right moments. She complimented the right things. She touched Daniel's arm every time she spoke. I watched her carefully. Not because I was suspicious. Just because I'm 67, I've seen a lot of people, and something in my gut didn't sit right. I couldn't put my finger on it. Not at first. Daniel proposed to her 6 months ago. She cried, he cried, they called me from the restaurant. I told him I was happy for him. And I meant it. I wanted to be wrong about her. I really did. The engagement dinner was held at my son's house. His house that I technically helped him buy, but that's a separate story. Tiffany's mother, Karen, was there. Her stepfather. 2 of her girlfriends. My daughter-in-law-to-be's whole orbit, it seemed. My side of the table was thinner. Just me and Daniel's old college roommate, Marcus, who I've always liked. From the moment I walked in, something felt off. Tiffany was warm to me on the surface. She kissed my cheek, called me Dad Frank, and handed me a glass of sparkling water because she knew I didn't drink. I do drink. Occasionally. But I didn't correct her. Her mother, Karen, was a different story. Karen looked at me the way people look at old furniture, like she was calculating whether it was worth keeping or just easier to throw out. She smiled when she caught me watching, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. I'm familiar with that look. I've been on job sites with men who had that look. Men who wanted something from you. Men who were already 3 moves ahead in a game you didn't know you were playing. Dinner was fine. Daniel gave a toast. Everyone clapped. Tiffany cried again. She was very good at crying. Then came the moment. About an hour into the evening, I excused myself to use the restroom. The hallway bathroom was occupied. So I walked toward the back of the house, near Daniel's home office. And that's when I heard her voice. Low. Deliberate. Not the warm, musical voice she used at the dinner table. This voice was different. I stopped. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. But I heard my name. And then I heard the word. Land. So I stayed very still. He's 67, Mom. He limps. He barely keeps up with conversations at dinner. He has no idea. The land is worth millions. I looked it up. The county records are public. He owns 140 acres right next to that new development corridor. Do you know what developers are paying per acre out there right now? Silence. Then Karen's voice, muffled but clear enough. So what's the plan? And then Tiffany said something that turned my blood cold. Daniel loves him. But Daniel also trusts me completely. By the time we're married 6 months, I'll have a picture of this family that nobody will question. I just need him to sign something, or not be around to contest anything. Whichever comes first. I stood in that hallway. My heart was beating hard. But my face? My face was completely calm. Because here's something Tiffany didn't know about me. Before I was a construction worker, before I bought that land, before I was anyone's father or grandfather, I spent 8 years working as a paralegal for a real estate attorney in Richmond, Virginia. I know exactly how property transfers work. I know exactly what a deed means. I know exactly what contest means in a legal context. And I know exactly what to do when someone is coming for what's mine. I walked back to the dinner table. I sat down. I smiled. And I started planning. The next morning, I called my attorney. His name is Warren. We've known each other for 30 years. He's the kind of lawyer who doesn't panic and doesn't waste words. I told him what I heard, word for word. I have a good memory. Always have. Warren listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "Frank, how soon can you come in?" I was at his office by noon. We spent 3 hours that day mapping out everything. The land, the deed, my will, my assets, every piece of paper that had my name on it. And then Warren said something that surprised even me. "Frank, did you know that the county just rezoned 80 acres of your property as part of the commercial expansion corridor?" I leaned forward. "When did that happen?" "4 months ago." Quietly. "The public record is there, but it doesn't make headlines. Frank, at current market rates, we're looking at somewhere between $4 and $6 million if you sold to the right buyer. Maybe more, depending on how the development moves." I sat back in my chair. 4 to 6 million. Tiffany had done her homework. And now, so would I. The first thing Warren and I did was place every asset I owned into a revocable living trust. My name as trustee. Daniel named as successor trustee. This meant that the land, and everything else, was now held by the trust, not by me personally. If anyone tried to contest my estate, or claim I was mentally unfit to manage my affairs, the trust structure made that nearly impossible. The assets were protected. The second thing I did surprised Warren a little. "I want to give Daniel his inheritance now," I said. "Now? Not all of it. But enough." Here's what I was thinking. Tiffany's plan, whatever the exact shape of it, depended on one thing: Daniel being unaware. She needed him in the dark. She needed to be the one who informed him, guided him, positioned herself between him and the truth. So I was going to remove that card from her hand entirely. I called Daniel that evening. I told him I wanted to take him to lunch. Just the two of us. He said, "Sure, Dad. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I told him. "I just have some things I want to share with you." We met at a diner we used to go to when he was a teenager. Vinyl booths. Good coffee. The kind of place where people talk honestly. I told him everything. Not what I overheard, not yet. But I told him about the land. The full picture. The 140 acres. The rezoning. What Warren had told me about the value. Daniel looked at me like I just told him I was secretly an astronaut. "Dad, I knew you had land out there, but I didn't know." "I know," I said. "I kept it quiet. Your mother and I didn't want it to change things. But now it's time for you to know." I told him I'd placed everything in a trust. That he was the successor trustee. That no one, and I emphasize this, no one could touch it without his knowledge and involvement. He sat quietly for a long time. Then he said, "Why now, Dad? Why are you telling me this now?" I looked at him. "Because I love you," I said. And because I want you going into your marriage with your eyes open. He asked me what I meant. I told him I wasn't ready to say more. Not yet. I asked him to trust me for a little while longer. He said he did. And that was enough. 2 weeks after that lunch, I did something that felt a little theatrical. But Warren agreed it was necessary. I called Tiffany. I told her I'd been feeling tired lately. That my memory wasn't what it used to be. That I'd been worried about my affairs and wondering if maybe I should simplify things. I let the silence sit after I said it. She filled it immediately. Oh, Dad Frank, of course. I'm sure that's stressful. Is there anything Daniel and I can help with? Actually, I said, I was hoping to sit down with you. Just the two of us. I want to talk about the property. Another pause. Shorter this time. Of course, she said. I'd love that. We met at my house 3 days later. She came alone, as I asked. She was dressed beautifully. Professional but warm. She brought me a loaf of banana bread, which I thought was a nice touch. I had a small recorder in my shirt pocket. Virginia is a one-party consent state. Warren confirmed it was perfectly legal. We sat at my kitchen table. I played the role. I talked slowly. I repeated myself once or twice on purpose, nothing dramatic, just enough to suggest I wasn't quite as sharp as I used to be. I mentioned that I'd been having trouble keeping track of my paperwork. I said the word overwhelmed a few times. Tiffany was a very good actress. She was patient, gentle. She reached across the table and patted my hand. She said things like, "That's so understandable," and, "You've carried so much, you shouldn't have to worry." Then carefully, very carefully, she began steering the conversation. She mentioned that she had a friend who was a financial advisor. She mentioned that simplifying assets was very common for people my age. She used the phrase, "peace of mind," 4 times. I counted. And then she said it. "You know, Dad Frank, if you ever wanted to just consolidate things under a family umbrella, something that Daniel and I could help manage, that might give you a lot of relief. You wouldn't have to worry about any of it." I looked at her over my glasses. "That sounds like it might make sense," I said slowly. "What would that look like?" She smiled. It was the smile of someone who thought they had won. "Well, we'd probably just need to do some paperwork. Update some beneficiaries. Maybe a simple power of attorney to start." Power of attorney. There it was. I said. "I'd have to talk to my lawyer about that." Her smile flickered. Just for a second. "Of course," she said. "Absolutely." I thanked her for the banana bread. I walked her to the door. I waited until her car turned out of the driveway. Then I sat back down at my kitchen table, and I allowed myself one small smile. Because here's what Tiffany didn't know. A week before that meeting, a full week before she ever suggested a power of attorney, I had already signed one. With Warren. Designating Daniel as my power of attorney. Not Tiffany. Daniel. And Daniel now knew exactly what had been going on. Daniel had taken it hard when I finally told him everything. I showed him the timeline. I played him a portion of the recording from our kitchen meeting, not to destroy him, but because he needed to hear it in her own words. He sat at my kitchen table for a long time without speaking. Then he said quietly, "How long have you known?" "Since the engagement dinner," I said. "And you didn't tell me right away because I needed you to know the truth about the land first. I needed you to understand what was at stake. And I needed evidence, not just an old man's hunch." He nodded slowly. "What do I do, Dad?" "That's your decision," I said. "It's your life. But you deserve to make it with the full picture." I gave him space after that. A week passed. I didn't push. I didn't call every day. I let him sit with it. Then one evening he showed up at my house unannounced. He had clearly been crying, though he was composed now. He sat down across from me. "I talked to her," he said. "How did it go?" I asked her directly. I told her I knew about the land, that I'd already spoken to your lawyer, that I knew she'd been researching the property records. I told her I'd heard her on the phone at the engagement dinner. I waited. She denied it at first. Then she said I'd misunderstood. Then she said you'd manipulated me. Then she cried. I nodded. And I told her the engagement was off. The room was quiet. Daniel looked at me. She said some things about you, he said carefully. About how you'd always hated her. About how you were trying to control my life. Do you believe that? He shook his head slowly. No. Because I know you, Dad. And because I heard the recording. We sat there together in the quiet of my living house for a while. Outside, the evening was coming in soft and gold through the windows. I'm sorry, I said finally. Why are you apologizing? Because I know this is painful. And I wish it hadn't been necessary. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said something I'll never forget. You know what the worst part is? I actually thought I loved her. I thought she was the one. But she never looked at me the way Mom used to look at you. I didn't say anything to that. Some things don't need a response. 2 months after Daniel ended the engagement, Tiffany made one final play. She hired an attorney. She filed a claim stating that Daniel had verbally promised her a share of future assets during their engagement. It was thin, almost laughably thin, but it was designed to intimidate, to create nuisance, to cost us time and legal fees and make a settlement seem easier than a fight. That's how these things work sometimes. Warren called me when the filing came through. He didn't sound worried. Frank, he said, you remember why we set up that trust? I do, I said. There is no personal asset to claim against. The land doesn't belong to you individually. It belongs to the trust. She has no legal standing. This gets dismissed. It was dismissed. 12 days later. No settlement. No negotiation. Just a judge reviewing the filing and a quiet, official ending. Tiffany's attorney withdrew from the case shortly after. Karen, her mother, actually called me. Once. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message that was half apology, half excuse. I listened to it once and then deleted it. Some things don't deserve a response either. Last spring, I sold 40 of my 140 acres to a commercial developer who'd been circling the property for 2 years. The number on the check made my hands shake a little, even though I knew it was coming. I split it with Daniel, right down the middle. He didn't want to take it. He said it was my land, my money, my 40 years of patience. I told him his mother, and I had always planned for this to be his someday. I said someday had arrived a little early, and that was fine. He used his share to pay off his house entirely. He has no mortgage now. He's free. He started dating again recently. A woman named Claire, who teaches elementary school and apparently makes excellent chili. He sounds different on the phone when he talks about her. Lighter. I still have 100 acres. I'm not selling those. Not yet. Maybe not ever. There's a creek on the eastern edge of the property that floods every spring. I used to think that was a problem. Now I walk out there on warm mornings and just listen to it. Carol used to say I had a gift for patience. She meant it as a compliment, but it also had a little bit of teasing in it, because patience was the one thing she had more trouble with than me. She wanted things to be right immediately. She wanted people to be honest immediately. She wanted love to be simple and immediate and real. She wasn't wrong to want that. But the world doesn't always cooperate. Sometimes you have to wait. You have to watch. You have to be the old man in the corner who nobody is paying close attention to, the one who isn't drinking, who walks with a limp, who seems like he's barely keeping up with the conversation. And then, when the moment is right, you move. Tiffany thought she had found a simple target. An old man with land he didn't fully understand, a son who was too trusting, and no one watching the door. She was wrong on all 3 counts. I understood every inch of that land. My son was trusting, but when it mattered, He was also brave enough to walk away from something that looked like love but wasn't. And as for someone watching the door? That's been my job for 67 years. I'm still pretty good at it. If this story hit you the way I hope it did, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've ever had someone underestimate you, or come after what you worked your whole life to build, drop it in the comments. You might be surprised how many people have been right where you're standing. I'll be here, watching the door.